partner that way. That's Andrea Zaki, representing with a T-shirt. And all right, Andrea, take it away.
Well, I'm so stoked today to have Rob, Roro La Velle, and Craig Semetko here. I think this is going to be a really great webinar. What I'm really excited about is having the two of these guys together. I just think that it's just a great pairing. So they're both very interesting people, and they have two very different takes on India, but in some ways similar all at the same time. So I just want to jump right into it. Let me give a brief introduction. I think first up is Rob. And just to give you a quick background on Rob, he started photographing at 12. Rob and I go back almost that far, and no dates because it's just damn embarrassing. And he started in the photo industry right after college with me. We same time, and then Rob left and went on to do graduate school in Germany, right, Rob? And after that, he went into consulting and worked in the high-tech world. But he's always been a motorcycle aficionado. And in 2008, he rode his BMW around the world. And after doing that, he wrote a book, The Places in Between, which I think you should definitely check out. And he's basically been working and riding in India for over a decade. So to say that he is an expert is really kind of an understatement. Rob is the founder of Two Wheel Expeditions, which is a touring company that takes their guests on motorcycle tours of India and Nepal. And looks like the trip of a lifetime. And so just a quick shout out. You can see Rob's, photography at roblavellephotography.com, and that link was in the email that you guys all got. And also at, you definitely need to check out Two Wheel Expeditions. There's great stills there and also some amazing motion video. And so I'm just going to throw out a random factoid about Rob. Rob has attended Burning Man how many times?
9.
9 times. All right.
Wow.
So yeah, he's also got an amazing photographs from Burning Man, but that's another webinar. So Rob, why don't you take it away?
All right, I'll go to screen share. I thought the factoid was going to be that I regularly dye my hair pink.
Everybody knows that.
All right, I'm going to start my show here. So thanks everybody. Thanks for the kind intro. So I'll start with a shot of outside of Pushkar. This is where a bunch of camel herders come together out of the desert every now and then just to trade. There's a bio here, but Zach already referred to most of it, but he did ask me to put a photograph of a Royal Enfield since those are the bikes that we use for our tours. Also, most of the work that I do is with a Nikon D800, mainly because it's one solid chunk of steel. I do all my rides, 1,000 miles plus each tour, with it slung around my neck and shoot the whole time, and it just keeps going and going. So I'm going to start off with some words. I know everyone's here for the visual, but this is excerpt from my book, and I think it kind of for me is a distillation of what India means for me. So just to tee it up, so my ex and I were riding around the world. We had spent 2 months riding in India. We're about to leave leave India into Pakistan, continue riding, and I wrote these words at the end of that stint. There's no doubt in our minds that from our point of view as riders on the street rather than tourists in a bus, our 2,000 miles across this country have been war. Each day presented us with battles that tested us, grinded us, covered up with soot and grime, and on a daily basis nearly killed us. But even worse than our brushes with mortality, India murders itself. Whether it be on the highways, in its cities, or in rural villages, it is a place where to be born weak is to subsist on the ruthlessly dark fringe of existence. But in the paradox that has for me defined the place, India is by far the most magical country I have ever visited. It has the capacity to make you gasp for breath at its architectural beauty, to charm you with the mosaic of its peoples and culture, and seduce you with its history and religions. Metaphorically, it is like the tiger that still roams the southern jungles, awesomely beautiful and majestic, but with the potential to devour the unwary. So in a nutshell, India is a paradox. You can't be indifferent about it. It literally has the ability to make you feel absolutely consumed with beauty and ugliness and hatred all within 60 seconds. But that's what, for me, makes it so interesting to photograph. So I'm going to get started on the shots. I'm going to kind of group these by category. So first, we're just focusing on mainly dudes. And the reason I've got the photographs of men is because they are quite easy to photograph, even if they don't speak English, like this nomadic shepherd high up at 15,500 feet on the Tibetan plateau up in the state of Ladakh. Just comes down to just exchanges of noticing that the cool shirt that he had on, or pointing to some of his animals, asking him if I could take a shot, and he let me capture this photograph of his face. Far, far away on the other side of the country, in Jaisalmer, it's in Rajasthan. It was about 6 years ago, I captured this shot. Just walking around the town. It's a beautiful old citadel town, one of my favorite cities in the country. And this has always been one of my favorites. If you've been to my website, it's on the homepage. And I just love the composition. I love like the steely blue sheen from the metal shavings on his arm and on his forehead. I love, obviously, his piercing eyes and the cigarette pointing straight down my lens. And then off to his right shoulder there, the wheel slightly out of focus, which is really defines what he does for a living. Another dude shot. This is actually during one of our tours, riding through Nepal. We actually stopped for tea breaks like we do every hour just to chill out. Started chatting with this guy, Nepali guy, Nawari hats. We were kind of joking with each other. He was making fun of my hair. I was making fun of my hat. He was okay with taking a shot. And then this photograph, I mean, this is, you can read about this in my book. I mean, the moments that led up to this photograph would take probably the entire hour. But just to summarize, so my ex and I were riding through Pakistan, through Balochistan, very unstable part of the country, about 50, 60 miles before they got to the Iranian border. And we were in a very tense situation with a lot of protesters, and this is at an outpost in the middle of the desert, and required a couple of armed policemen to kind of break up the crowd. And it was only afterwards, when things settled down, that my hand stopped shaking, and I asked if I could take the photograph of these guys, and only found out from the policemen afterwards that they were Taliban drug smugglers bringing opium from Afghanistan, which is only 15 miles away. Easier than old men to photograph are kids. And it doesn't matter where you go. Sometimes you have to bat them off with a stick. I've got a lot of photographs of kids just clamoring around to get in the shot. This shot was taken during a business trip, actually, to Mumbai probably 6 years ago. And I had a weekend free to get over jet lag, so I just got my camera, walked around random neighborhoods. Happened to be Holi Festival, which has actually just happened again in March. And we just got in a paint war. I was covered, they were covered, and got this great shot of this kid flanked by his buddies. If you've ever been to India, you can probably recognize where this shot is taken. Jodhpur, the blue city, whitewashed in this beautiful blue. It's a beautiful place just to kind of get lost. We'll roam through the alleys and shoot. It is a touristy city, so if you're there during tourist season, there'll be a lot of old French and German people. But it's a town where just kids come out of the woodwork to be photographed. This girl came running out of her house behind her. I took a bunch of shots of her. I got the beautiful juxtaposition of her pink dress with the blue whitewashed house behind, and her red bindi on her forehead, and her beautiful piercing eyes. And then at the last minute, her brother ran out to get into the shot as well. So I kind of got him to frame the shot.
Hey, Rob, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
So I noticed on a lot of your portraits, really nice use of depth of field. What lens do you shoot with primarily?
This one. 24 to 70 Nikkor, and that's like my third one because it's a great lens, but they're not sealed zoom, and I ride through the desert a lot, so they get kind of jammed up with grit and sand. But it's my favorite lens just to have on the camera all the time.
Great.
Okay, so this is just like a National Geographic-y kind of shot during our last tour to Nepal last November. But the reason I put it in there is we had arrived at this town called Daman. It's like the last night on the road before we get back to Kathmandu. And it's incredibly famous because we stay at this kind of ramshackle inn called the Panorama, and it is truly that. It's got a complete panoramic view of the Himalayas. And every time we had been, probably half a dozen times before, the mountains were obscured by clouds and the haze. And this time it was fantastic. So this just barely captures what it was like to be there, but a beautiful place to go if you ever get a chance. During that same business trip walkabout in Mumbai, I got this shot, and this is in an abattoir, working abattoir in Mumbai. I can't remember what neighborhood. One of the things I noticed as a tip for people walking around in India is it seems like you can pretty much go wherever you want. You might call it white privilege, whatever you want to call it, but it seems that where maybe a local might be stopped, they just let me in. And so there I was just randomly walking around this abattoir. I like this shot because obviously it's kind of grim. You've got these weird random slabs of entrails on a rock slab, and this very kind of factory look to the back with the guys there. But it's kind of a great comparison to some of the other shots that are much more beautiful and humanitarian.
Rob, I have another question for you. How important is it to speak, I know that there's like 20 languages that's spoken in India?
Yeah, 26.
26,
Yeah.
Can you get by with, just English for the most part, or?
Well, here's another tip: is to have pretty much every language in the world
tattooed on you.
It actually helps. It actually has started a lot of conversations, even if they end up with hand signals. No, to be honest, in India has never been a problem. Obviously, most in the city people will speak English. But just like you do anywhere else in the world, you can just use hand signals to be able to communicate your intent, whether it is to order a tea or to take somebody's photograph. This shot, this is a kind of a marketing shot that I use. Lumbini is, during our tour through Nepal, Lumbini is where we stay when we visit the birthplace of the Buddha near the Indian border. And we have this routine, this ritual with our clients that when we stay at this hotel, the next morning, everyone, if they want to, gets up at 5 a.m. and we ride off into the rice fields because there's always this beautiful mist and sun rising. So we got this shot, it's an okay shot, but it's just something that we use for our marketing. And Doc asked me to put a couple of motorcycle shots in there. This shot I included because, obviously everyone's seen gazillion shots of the Taj Mahal, and it's nice to kind of find some way to get a different angle. I've got a couple of shots of like portals, black and white, crazy kind of stuff. This was actually taken from the north side. There's a river that goes through, and the Yamuna River. On the north side is this park called the Mehtab Bagh. And from that park, you get kind of looking at the back side of the Taj. And we got up, way before sunrise to head over there on our motorcycles and just hung out, wait for the sun to come up. And I love this photograph because you can kind of tell it's the Taj. You see all the detail of the Islamic scriptures engraved in the side of the building and the beautiful shading of the marble as the sun comes up. But obviously also you get the sense of scale with the people at the bottom. And that same principle holds true here. This is another part of India, way up in Ladakh again. This is probably at around 16,500 feet. And this is a glaciated mountain with this beautiful alluvial runoff. And I chose to use a long lens just to capture my two ride captains that just decided to take a little stroll just to get them in there for scale. I have a zillion photographs of train stations. I hope I'm not a train spotter because that'd be kind of a weird, nerdy hobby to have. But nevertheless, they always seem to have this kind of same layout, same composition, wider lens, the clock up and to the right, slightly stretched through the distortion of the lens, streaming light coming through skylights. I love this with a slower shutter speed to get the guy kind of blurred running off to his train. So one of my earliest influences was Ansel Adams. I bought all of his books, and I'm primarily self-taught. I used to do a lot of lab work with Zoc and with others, and through most of my career. And so obviously this wasn't shot with a film, with a black and white film. It was shot with my digital SLR. but I chose to render it in black and white. This beautiful monastery is like day one of our ride out of Leh in Ladakh up to this little village called Lamayuru. And this monastery, 800 years old, it's kind of indicative of the kind of architecture of the Buddhist region of India. And just beautiful the way you get the layers of foreground, then to the monastery itself, and then the two layers of mountains, differently shaded mountains in the back. So Zach asked me to put in a motorcycling shot, so I threw it in. We use this all the time for our marketing, but this is about half of the 1,000 miles we do on our rides in Ladakh or off-road. So I just threw this shot in there to kind of show you what the experience is like. Obviously beautiful landscapes, riding our Enfields across the hard kind of packed salt lake bed up in the high Tibetan plateau. So one of the messages that I would give everybody going to India is there's really no such thing as India. India is so many different countries, 22 languages, 26 languages, 22 states. So it's incredibly diverse. And it's a land of extremes, as we tell everybody when we do our monthly webinars. And nothing really typifies that comparison than going from the shot that I just showed to the lush green landscapes of Kerala, the kind of the center of tea plantations, spice plantations, and coffee plantations in southern India. This is like stop number 2 on our tour. And I really love this shot because if you get down into those tea groves or fields, whatever, each one is a manicured bush and manicured by hand. And so each one of those little pathways is there to give access to the pickers to go and pick individual leaves. And it kind of shows the beautiful topography of the landscape. I posted this photograph for our marketing not too long ago. This is kind of cheating because this is one of the GoPro shots, so I wasn't really engaged. It kind of did it on its own. But I posted this with the kind of the messaging. If there's one photograph that really kind of expresses the feeling of motorcycling in this part of the world, it's this one. It gives you, we're riding through this incredibly wide valley up in the high plateau. Obviously you can see there's just nothing but dirt in front of us, and the riders there on the horizon. If you want to feel remoteness and feel completely in awe of incredible landscapes, I highly recommend, whether on a motorcycle or not, beautiful place to go. Now I've cheated a little bit and I stepped a little bit out of India and Nepal for this shot. This is during a trip to Colombo and Sri Lanka about 1.5 years ago. I just love it. Just some kids playing in the park, practicing their sprints. Boys obviously unfettered. The girl, unfortunately, with her hijab. But I watched the race and she was just as fast as the boys. So I just love that photograph. I don't know why I like this photograph. I think mainly because it's a painting, but feels like a painting. But if I could suggest any place in India to go and really just if you just spend time in one place with a camera, it would be Varanasi. It's a 2,000-year-old city, so one of the oldest cities in the country. It's a spiritual center of India, of the Hindu faith. Obviously, the Ganges runs through it, and it's famous for its ghats, these walkways, staircases that go down to the river. Each ghat has a different purpose. One is just the burning ghat, where it just burns 24 hours a day, where it burns funeral pyres so that people's ashes could be strewn into the river. I like this photograph because I like the composition with the boater looking off into the right, and kind of the perspective of the buildings kind of pointing towards him, the mist, and obviously there's that freaky little goat off to the right-hand side that gives it kind of like a Last Judgment kind of feel. A totally different part of India, in Punjab area on the border of Pakistan. This is the Golden Temple of Amritsar, beautiful place, literally like a jewel box, highly photogenic, very spiritual place, even if you're not spiritual, just to hang out and watch people practice their religion. Craig's gonna be mad at me because I looked at his portfolio last night and he and I took a picture of the exact same rock. So I hope I'm not stealing any thunder, but this is a shot during a business trip. I was visiting our office in Chennai and riding down to Pondicherry. And this place, Mahabalipuram, is famous for a incredible I guess like a spirit, a religious relic, but it's also this natural park that has this incredible boulder just sitting there, and kids. I think so many kids have slid down where this kid is sliding has actually worn a smooth groove in the stone. I'm wrapping up. So this photograph outside of India and Nepal, this is taken in Pakistan. I love it because it's taken during our motorcycle trip around the world. I love it because it's just so pure and serene. The beautiful shiny marble floors, the soul figure walking towards the mosque, the beautiful sunset. I spent a couple of hours hanging out at this mosque, taking pictures and talking to kids. And unfortunately, this serenity was completely destroyed a couple of months after they were there by a suicide bomber attack. This just for me kind of exemplifies the serenity of walking along the banks of the Ganges River early in the morning in Varanasi.
Hey, Rob.
My final shot. So this was taken on our last tour, which only finished off at the end of March. And I love this photograph because this is one of our clients. We have people from Australia, New Zealand, UK, US, and he runs a business in Scotland that was being severely impacted by what was happening due to COVID back in the UK with all the schools shutting down. And we try to keep him engaged. Everyone had a fantastic time, but during an evening that we spent just kind of chilling out and having some beers in the dunes, he took this solitary walk. You know, kind of that point is to characterize the mood of everybody. Since then, obviously, we got everybody out. Prior to the shutdown of India, only 2 days before, everybody went back to their home countries. And since then, Field Expeditions, we've been idle, we've been marketing, we riding my own motorcycle, reconnecting with friends, taking photographs, but that's pretty much my story. So if you want any more information, and you happen to be one of the people who's a photographer and rider, get in touch. We'd love to ride with you. Thank you.
So Rob, I have a question or two. Can everybody hear me? Can you guys hear me?
Yep, I hear you.
So first of all, I kind of have a question. I kind of want to ask something for our audience if people want to post. Some people have been posting that the main image, the images have been coming and going. And have any of you guys experienced that on your screen since we're all in different locations? I have not.
Well, I've missed my main screen here. I was going back to the side tablet here, the side view to watch it. So I'm a little concerned about that. Eric, did you get my message?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So
I'll do it again.
it was worth.
No, I mean, I saw everything. I just had
Come on, I'm in London right now. It's time for a beer.
Well, that was great. But I wanted to ask you, Rob, about, you know, it made me think about your photographs from the funeral pyres on the Ganges. And what is the protocol, or what are the customs for photographing, you know, religious sites and temples in India?
It's all, usually they're signposted. It's better to ask. I think Hindu temples, they're a little bit more lax because they tend to be a little bit more chaotic than going to a mosque or into a Buddhist temple. I think funeral pyres, there's another one that's similar to that up in Kathmandu. And sometimes if you got a guide, they'll kind of bring you up close to take photographs. I think that's uncalled for. I think if anything, if you want to photograph it, use a long lens and capture it from a distance and just keep a respect boundary.
Mm-hmm. And
Rob, sorry, I was going to say, someone asked if you could put up your Ganges image again.
Which one? There are a lot of them.
You just said
one? This one?
Probably that one. The river, yeah. Was that the one you wanted to see, Greg? Greg, it was from Greg. No, the burning. Not sure which one was there something about the burning?
No, I mentioned the burning ghats with this one photograph. But there is no, but this isn't near the burning gut. This is just randomly, this is a gut you can see at the side, on the right-hand side, where people just come down to the river to bathe. I didn't take any photographs of the funeral pyres.
And just to remind folks, we're going to have a Q&A section segment at the end after Craig presents. But so I think at this point, thank you, Rob. That was awesome. And now I want to introduce our next photographer here, and that's Craig Semetko. And Craig is another very interesting person, just a good dude in general. And he started as a professional comedy writer and performer, and I think that you're going to see that informs a lot of his photography. There's a lot of kind of very tongue-in-cheek sarcasm and quick wit in a lot of those images. Craig was chosen by Leica to be part of the prestigious 10 by 10 exhibition. And I think that was when 2013, Craig?
Yes.
And I think Craig is going to talk a little bit more about that. And he's also been an instructor with the Leica Academy, and those are the Leica workshops. And he's the author of a really beautiful book called Unposed India. Or is it India Unposed? I'm sorry, Craig.
Yeah, there's two of them, but the second one is India Unposed. The first one is just Unposed.
Unposed, right.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to turn it over to Craig, but a random fact about Craig before he gets into his talk is he has a master's degree in consciousness studies, whatever that is.
Ooh, don't ask me. I don't know.
I just want to pipe in one more thing about Craig, because it was a great introduction about you, Craig, and Andre did a nice job. You know, my connection with Craig was through Tom Smith from the Leica Academy, and you know, we've worked very closely with Leica, and I think your work has been especially wonderful, and we have done a lot of printing with you on your exhibitions, and it's been really a true honor to be able to collaborate with you on your printing that's happened both here and in multiple Leica galleries around the world. So I really enjoyed working with you, Craig. So thank you. And if you have any technical issues here launching your presentation here, let me know, and I can do it as well.
So all right, I'm gonna give it a shot.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Okay, just one quick technical issue. I think that actually as panelists, other than Craig, I see Rob's already muted himself. Maybe if Eric and I wasn't muting myself, that might help with the screen coming and going. But so yeah, that's all I have to say.
All right. Well, I'm wondering what you guys are looking at right now. Is it my screen or no?
Yep. Yeah,
you are.
Yeah.
Okay. So do you see a picture of a dog?
We do.
Great. Oh, wonderful. All right. Well, then I will just jump right in here and just expand a little bit on what Andrea was saying. And that was, yeah, these India pictures all were a result of a project that I was asked to be a part of to celebrate the 100 years of Leica photography. And Leica built a brand new headquarters, factory, museum, everything in Wetzlar, Germany. And they asked 10 photographers from around the world to do what they called a 10 by 10 exhibition.
Craig,
so
I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
But okay, I'm getting a message from a lot of people that they can't see anything. So specifically, Greg, how about now, guys? Can you see the screen? Okay.
Maybe.
All right, so that might be a little lag issue for some people. So, okay, I'm sorry, Craig, and take it.
Is it okay, or would it be better if Eric ran it?
No, I think you're fine, Craig. Just keep going.
Okay. So where was I? So yeah, in the spring of 2013, they asked me to be a part of this, and the conceit was it would be 10 photographers producing 10 images each. So it would be 10 by 10, which equals 100 images for the 100 years of Leica photographs. Part of the conceit of this was they were they were
Greg,
teaming.
sorry again. We're getting a lot of messages that nothing is showing up.
Yeah.
Eric, do you want to try maybe running it?
Why don't I stop the share on my end, and if I can get there, where the heck? I'm going to stop sharing on my end, and Eric, maybe if you try it.
I'm also getting a comment from Tony that said basically you might want to try logging out and logging back in. There could be a connectivity issue.
Okay, I'm going to give that a shot.
Oh, not you, Craig. The participants.
Oh.
Please bear with us here, folks. This is kind of one of the joys of Zoom.
Yeah. It always happens.
Can people see the screen now? They can see the full screen with the dog. Okay.
There's
So,
not a big note in the middle of it that says this keynote presentation may look different, because that's what I see.
That's what I see too, Eric.
hold on.
Yeah, there's that note in the middle. I guess everybody looks like they can see it as well.
Hold on 1 second. Oh, I see why. Hold on.
There you go. You just go back over to the dog at the top there and then click on play. Should be good to go.
I got to redo the screen share. Sorry, folks.
So, Craig, how many times have you been to India? Was it just the one time? Twice?
No, I've been there, I believe, 3 times now. Not near the experience, obviously, that Roro has had there. And I enjoyed that presentation, by the way, Roro. Thanks for that. I see that we have covered some of the similar ground. I've never been to Ladakh, though. I'd love to go there someday. I understand it's just gorgeous. But I have gone to a number of cities in pursuit of this project that I was talking about for Leica. So you'll want to hit, yeah, there you go. Perfect. That should be good. I hope that helps everybody. Anyway, so I chose to, they teamed us with our quote artistic fathers, and they teamed me with Elliot Erwitt because we have similar styles and that there's a lot of humor, and we shoot in black and white, or shot in black and white primarily, and also in the street. So, and we shoot a lot of dogs. So I took all that knowledge and I decided to go to India. My sister happened to be there. She was on a Fulbright scholarship, so I had a free place to stay for a couple of months, and off I went, and was headquartered in Mumbai, but I kind of traveled around the country and would always go back to Mumbai. I was very fortunate in that regard that that I could come back and have family there. As I was sending some pictures back to Karen Kaufman with Leica, she was very excited about it and said, "These are great. We'd like you to do an exhibition on your own in San Moritz." So I said, okay, I'm going to need more time. So I called the travel agent, booked another month, and traveled some more. At the end of that whole experience, right around December of 2013, I was sitting home over the holidays looking at what I had, and I realized I probably had enough for a book here. So I began to put a book together. And what you're going to see today is mainly images from the book, but there are also a number of other images that are not in the book because of their color. That was one of the major things about picking Elliot Erwitt. We both shot black and white, so color ones had to stay out. But I guess if we want to start here, this is in Mumbai. This is in an area called Pali Hill, and there are dogs everywhere, all over India. This one looked particularly happy. I asked him if I could take his picture, and he obliged. And we can go back for a minute. You can see that I asked him, and he smiled, and I got the shot. So he was awful friendly. I was only told afterwards that India has the #1 rate of rabies for all the wild dogs. I had not had any rabies shots, and I got a lot of dogs, and I was very close to them. So, thank you. I did not get rabies, but anyway, moving on. This is also in Mumbai. I've put these together in city locations. I was trying to get a good shot of anything. I had had about 3 cups of masala tea and was completely jacked up on sugar and caffeine. Looked up the hill and saw some steam coming over these bricks, and ran up there, and it turned out to be a guy boiling water to make his own tea. And I was bored and wanted to shoot anything, so I started shooting pictures of his boiling water, if you can imagine that. That's not exactly my kind of a photograph. But as I was doing this, he said, would you mind taking a picture of my daughter? Now, he didn't speak English. He pointed to his daughter. So I took a few images of her, and she was, very shy. She ran into the house after a couple of portraits. I showed him the portraits, and when I looked up, she was come out of the house and was just standing in the doorway like that and got that shot. Only later did I realize that her even shyer sibling was over there to the left. I didn't even see her when I took that picture. Okay, next. So as Roro could tell you, you almost never see anybody kiss in India. It's sort of a cultural thing. You just don't, it's, too much public affection, I guess. People don't kiss in India in public. So when I saw this couple down near this, what do they call that bridge? Forgot the name of the bridge, but it's a big bridge that sort of connects two parts of Mumbai. I saw them flirting with the idea of kissing. I was, very curious and see if they actually would. And while I was shooting them, this third person comes into the frame up there. And my initial reaction was, I was angry because I'm like, you're ruining my frame, dude, get out. And then, no sooner did I get over that, than I realized the guy made the frame. Because, anytime you can get more relationships of people in an image, it's going to make the image stronger and help the story. As a matter of fact, you can make up your own story. As I look at this, I was thinking, this guy's like, that guy's got a girlfriend. How come I don't have a girlfriend? Where's my girlfriend? I'm going to jump. Anyway, next one. So yeah, this is in, how do you pronounce that? The Dharavi, the sort of slum that was famous for Slumdog Millionaire was shot there in Mumbai. And I was just, I was shooting this little girl. She was so unbelievably cute. And just as I started to shoot, I presume that's her grandfather, came right out, was coming out from inside. And it's a bifurcated image, and it's really kind of interesting. Someone once pointed out to me that I shoot a lot of young people with old people in the same frame. And when I started to look at my stuff, I realized, wow, apparently I do. But she was just unbelievably cute. He was cute too, whatever. So, if you take one of my classes, you'll hear me talk about design a lot, getting design. Cartier-Bresson said, a good photograph has to have a sense of geometry. And this photograph is, it's a combination of total geometry of Cartier-Bresson and the humor of Elliot Erwitt. I saw this dog laying there. The heat was miserable that day. This is also still in Mumbai. And I went up to take a shot of the dog. And as I was shooting, these boys were playing soccer or football over to my right, and they lost control of the ball, and it rolled into the frame. And I got like two frames off with that ball before the kid grabbed it. And that's called serendipity. And I try to live my life by that. Pleasant, unexpected delights happening.
Craig, I just want to ask you before we move on, you're obviously shooting with some prime lenses. What do you have a favorite lens that you're using on your camera while you're walking around? Yeah,
I would say it's probably a 35 millimeter. The first 2 lenses I bought were a 35 and a 50. I remember the salesman was very slick. I said to him, what should I do? Should I get a 35 or a 50? And he goes, it really doesn't matter. You're going to buy the other one sooner or later anyway.
Sounds like a Leica salesman.
He did a good job on me. I'll tell you, I turned out to be like a poster boy. I bought everything. But yeah, I start with a 35. That's my go-to. And I usually travel with 35 on the camera and a 50 in the bag or in my pocket. And I think this is the final shot from the Mumbai area. This is just two guys going out to fish. That's a huge fishing net, and they're going to go out there and set it all up and hopefully get a catch for the day. So this is Delhi, old Delhi, and this is this is a car salesman. Or I'm sorry, a used tire salesman in Delhi. And the thing I always ask people, can you tell how many people are in this photograph? And because at first blanch it's one, and then they see two, and then three, and there's actually four people in that photograph. A silhouette there next to the two guys in the background. Yes.
So we have a question, which is somebody asked, what camera do you use? And the question is a monochrome. So can you address that?
Yeah. So when I was on this trip, I used a Leica M. I believe it was a 246. It was one after the M9, but before the M10. And they were calling them, I think, 246s. And then I had a monochrome as well with me. The monochrome was used primarily at night. And I have a few night shots coming up here that you'll see. But for the most part, everything was taken with a Leica M, and it would have been the 246. I now use an M10P, and for this project that I've been shooting out of my window because I'm under lockdown here in Chicago, I've been using an SL2 with both zoom lenses, or two longer zoom lenses, the 24-90 and the 90-280 for the Leica. Next shot. It's just a little guy was getting his hair cut. It was so hot, and he just did not look happy to be getting his hair cut. And I tried to capture his general mood. I think I did. It was, imagine sitting there with all these hands holding your head and, hair falling everywhere.
I could use one of those barbers right about now.
Yeah. Next. Okay, I think this is a shot from, I believe it's from Jaipur. And this is another moment of serendipity. And you can see I was on my dog kick, trying to get another dog. And I'm sort of almost, right up where this dog is sleeping, or sort of semi-conscious dog. And I've got a 35 on there, and I take a couple of frames of him. And as I'm doing this guy comes literally running from around behind me. I have no idea why he was in such a hurry, but he went right around me, jumped right over the dog, and ran up the stairs. And fortunately, this is a lesson in sometimes you just have to take the damn shot, is what I say. I'm going to have a workshop someday. Just take the damn picture. You have to sometimes, look, if I would have waited and said, is my focus right here, or is the, exposure right, I would have missed that shot. Fortunately, I threw the camera up and pressed the button, and it came out perfectly. Next.
Love this image. Yeah,
this is sort of hypnotic, isn't it? It's in Goa, and which is it used to be its own independent country. It's heavily Catholic, but it's now part of India. And, not a word was spoken. I just looked at this kid, and the kid looked at me, the elephant looked at me. I took about 2 frames and moved on. But I'm very fond of this photograph as well. The eye of that elephant is just amazing. It looks good as a big print. Yes, and here's the shot Roro was referencing. I believe, as I said in an email to Roro yesterday, that they call this Krishna's Butterball. It's in Mahabalipuram, which is, I think it's about an hour outside of Chennai, so it's in the south. And there's temples, a lot of temples in this area, and this thing that they call Krishna's Butterball. Apparently, the story is the god Krishna, when he was a child, loved butter, had big butterballs everywhere and all around the house. And so they found this huge rock and named it Krishna's Butterball. I thought it was a particularly unusual place to take a nap. Particularly, I live in LA most of the time. We have earthquakes. I'm looking at this and I'm going, that would be probably the last place I would lay to take a nap, but to each his own. All right, next. So this was also in Mahabalipuram. This was I think the Shore Temple, I believe they call it. I didn't have any problem really shooting women, photographing women in India. I found that it was like a street photographer's dream come true being in India. There's the only issue was not whether or not people would allow you to take their picture. It was if they saw you and I stuck out like a sore thumb, they would sort of run up to you and demand that you take their picture. So that really caused a sort of a kink in my style of shooting, because I like to be surreptitious and sort of sneaky and not let people know that I'm taking their photograph. But this particular photograph was taken while my sister and my nieces were inside this temple. They said, we're going to go inside. I said, go ahead. I'm going to stand here and wait and see if serendipity happens. And I tell you, I waited 30 seconds and this little girl came walking through in this beautiful light. At the same time, simultaneously, an elderly woman was in the back with this crazy background of all this geometry. Again, another example of an old person and a young person in the same frame. Next. So yeah, this was also in that general area. We'd stayed there for a couple of days, and I saw this girl standing there on the side of a temple with these 3 goats, and I don't even know what she was doing there. And I started to photograph her, and she was seemingly unaware of my presence, but that's a 35 millimeter lens. So I was, not that far away from her. And I took these photographs. I photographed her for a couple of minutes. I was very concentrated. And then I kind of stopped and I looked up and I looked over to my right to see if she was what she was looking at. And there was a group of literally probably 20 people standing there watching me photograph her. And I think they were all her family, and they were all just sitting there watching with a smile on their face. And so I asked them all, and it kills me that I don't have this picture with me because I'm in between places right now. I've got, it's back in LA, but there's a photograph of her with these 20 people sitting up there with these goats around them. And they're all just having a great time and laughing. It was great because I don't speak Hindi. They don't speak English, but we somehow got this portrait of everybody, 20 people all laughing except the goats. They were not happy for some reason. Next. Yes, this is now Calcutta. Guys just taking it easy in between, I don't know, lunch break, playing cards. Next. And this is also Calcutta. Calcutta is wow. I mean, India, there's, as Roro said, I mean, it's really an assault on the senses. It's sensory overload when you get there. If you've never been there before, it's more than you can sort of deal with at first. And in India, I would say that Varanasi, as Roro said, and Calcutta are probably the 2 most intense places for life and death and everything in between. And I saw a guy in Calcutta laying in the street, and he was, I mean, I did a triple take. I thought he was dead. He was so thin. It looked like one of those, it was awful. And my guide was a young guy, and he just kind of kept walking. And I was standing there just staring. I didn't take any photos, but I was freaked out, wondering how I could help this guy. And finally, I had to kind of jog to run up to get my handler, my fixer. And he just said to me, "Hey, I'm sorry I didn't really stop. But I'm so used to that. I see it every day." And it just blew my mind. But you see all of that when you're in India, the joy of living and the misery of dying. And this is another shot of young and old. And I was captivated by the mimicry of the curve of the old man's back and the curve of the water flow coming out of the kid's, the hose that he's got there. And also he's got a vertical hose in his hand that mimics the vertical faucet that the old man is drinking from. Go ahead. Okay, we're now in Pushkar. I think Roro had a photograph of some camels outside of Pushkar, and this is sort of I was there for the actual camel fair, and that is just that's quite a visual extravaganza, and this is sort of an establishing shot of what the thing looks like, the sort of party area or carnival area of it. We can go on. And this is in that same sort of large area. I took this because I was amazed that this little girl, was walking this tightrope, and literally, figuratively, obviously, quite poor. She's got these things on her head, and she's got this stick, and nobody in this photograph is looking at her, particularly not the guy who's supposed to be spotting her in case she falls underneath. And there's another picture that corresponds with this photograph in the book, of an elderly woman who's bent over sweeping. And I was just, I realized women work hard all over the world, but I was really amazed at how hard and how young they start working in India.
Craig, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
I mean, I know you have a monochrome, and you do shoot a lot of, or you convert your files to black and white.
Yeah.
When you're out there, are you kind of deliberately thinking about black and white, or like, are you visualizing the scene later? If you shot this with your regular 246, do you kind of think in monochrome terms, or are you kind of looking at images later and then making a choice about black and white?
Excellent question. For this project, I was thinking in black and white. It was sort of the opposite. I was automatically assuming black and white because I knew the project was going to be in black and white, because they wanted me to shoot with the tip of the hat to Elliot, and Elliot basically always shot black and white. So it was interesting because it was sort of think in black and white, even though I'm shooting color, but then sometimes I would see a color photograph that just leapt out at me, and I was like, I got to take that picture, and I'm not going to be able to use it for this project, but I'll be able to use it somewhere else. And we have some of those coming up. But yeah, to answer your question, ironically, I was just thinking black and white this whole time. And this cracked me up. This was like about 7 a.m. This dude looks like he just rolled out of bed, was having a party, or just coming in or just coming out. I don't know what, but look at that t-shirt or that sweatshirt. It just killed me. And he's like this Indian Keith Richards. He was like, blah. I looked at him, he looked at me. We didn't say a word. And he's like, yeah, well, he just looked and reminded me of Keith Richards totally after a 3-day bender.
Do you think he could translate do you think he understood the translation of the t-shirt?
I have no idea where he got it, but I'm sure all you ladies think he's a real dreamboat, because he's I don't know. He was just a piece of work, this guy, and kind of staggering around, but I have no idea. Someone maybe gave it to him. I don't know. And I just took this as we exit Pushkar. You get the idea. I know it's somewhat cliche to show a lot of camels walking in a line, but you rarely, if ever, have seen them walking down, railroad tracks. I presume they would get off quickly enough if a train came by. Anyway, I think that's the last one from Pushkar. And this, is a not dissimilar shot from the one Roro showed, and in that it feels like a painting to me as well. And I think part of that feeling comes from, there's a constant fog, mist, haze, which is really smoke in the air from the burning ghats, and that's there 24/7. So that haze sort of diminishes the sharpness of the image, and it can heighten colors, and it just creates an ethereal effect where it really sort of looks like it can look like an oil painting or soft watercolor or something. But that's kind of an establishing shot of Varanasi. And for instance, again, the haze is out there, and this was very early in the morning. This is sort of blue haze, and he had this blue boat, and it was really ethereal. And I loved photographing in Varanasi, and I agree with Roro 100%. If I were to go back to India, and I only had one place to shoot, it would be Varanasi, because it's, again, that notion of life and death all in one place throughout India, but it is nowhere is it more pronounced than in Varanasi. Nowhere. It's heavy duty. I mean, you're watching people go by in the streets with, what are those called? They've got, they've got dead people that they're carrying around down to the ghats, and they're just going to burn them. And they're burning 24/7. If you've never seen anything like it, it's rather intense. Next image. Yeah, and this is another shot. This is actually one of my favorite shots of all time. I just, it's so cinematic, and you know, it just looks like it could have been a still from a documentary or something. I had hired these guys to take me to this event that happened, I was told, on Friday nights, of these priests performing ritual. You know, when we got there, it became obvious that, you know, it was sort of a setup tourist gig. There were a million boats in between us and the priests. There were a million tourists, you know, behind the priests, so the background was terrible. I kept trying to get a shot, and I just wasn't getting anywhere because I had a 35 millimeter lens. It was absurd, and I just got, instead of being frustrated, I finally just exhaled and said, to hell with it, you know, let's go home. So I turn around to tell these guys to go home, and I realized, wow, there's the shot. And I got this shot of them impromptu, and I just love the expression on both of their faces. And the lighting is remarkable. You know, I showed this to Mark Mann, the great portrait photographer who uses Leica products. And he looked at it and goes, I could do that lighting, but it would cost me $65,000 to get that lighting set up. But it was just natural in a boat going down the Ganges.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, thanks. And so that last one was taken with a monochrome because I knew I was going to be at night. And this was also taken with a monochrome. This was, I think, coming back to where I was staying in the boat with those guys. This is a holy man. And this was, you know, I don't know, 10 or 11 o'clock at night. And I think he was a legit holy man. You have a lot of guys that walk around and appear to be holy men, but they're only interested in your money. Some of them are really legit, and they really don't talk to the tourists. And this was one of those.
Another great use of geometry.
Yeah, well, that's what I was about to say. I mean, I don't want to compare myself here to Cartier-Bresson, but he was in my head when I was taking this shot, was all that geometry behind it in the background, the sweeping lines and the steps. Yeah, this is a crazy photograph. This was taken extremely early in the morning, also with a monochrome. And it's a guy, everybody's like, what is this guy doing? Well, he was standing out on top of something, and the tide was high, and these guys were going out to go fishing for the morning, early morning, and he was actually fishing. It's very hard to see, but there's a little white dot out in front of him, and it's a bobber. I mean, this guy was sitting out there with a single line, no pole, just had a fishing line in his hand and a bobber at the end of it. And yeah, this is also in Varanasi, but again, this was a shot that was, I said, I can't show this in black and white. You know, it's just too colorful. This woman, I was following her when I saw her in this beautiful sari. It was just striking, the colors, the red and the black. So I kind of followed her for a bit, and she walked right past this house with a cow on the porch. So, you know, the usual. This to me is again to remark on what Roro was saying about a painting. This to me, these guys are just coming out of this mist in the very early morning. What they're doing is bringing all this wood to burn in the Ghats, to burn bodies. And this is what they do every day. And they go out, I don't know where they're getting the wood from, but it's sort of some sort of, you know, holy trek coming out of the mist. It was really evocative to me. And you couldn't see even behind them because of this haze. So it looks like they just sort of magically appeared. Yeah, this didn't make the book. Sometimes I wish I would have put it in the book. It's just interesting shot, more of life and death in Varanasi. And, more dogs. Elliot would be happy. Yeah, this is an interesting photograph. This was Varanasi as well. And I'm not sure what was going on there, but this guy was just sort of taking it easy. It's really a weird depth perception here, but he is standing, leaning on a wall that's a bit of an angle, and here comes this goat running down the wall, and this one definitely screamed black and white. I think this is my final picture here coming up. Yeah, I include this one and I make it the last one just to sort of emphasize the serendipity and synchronicity and all that consciousness hooey stuff that we referenced in my introduction. But I'll tell you what happened here. I want to just tell you the story of this photograph. I'm standing there and I see this epic sort of poem on this wall in Varanasi, and ask yourself, who am I? Now this is some sort of a mantra that people ask themselves or are told to ask themselves regularly. And I looked at it and wow, this is really intense. I'm going to take a couple of pictures of it just for documentation purposes, just for myself, because normally I'm not in the habit of just shooting somebody else's art. But I wanted to see this. I wanted to remember it. So I took a couple of photos of it. And then I stood there and I looked at it. And I said, this could be a legitimate photo if something interesting would appear in the upper left quadrant. I'm saying this to myself. I'm like a cloud, anything. And no sooner did I have that thought, and I mean, the instant I had that thought go across my cerebrum, this dog came out of the right side of the frame. I saw him bounding. He was running. He wasn't meandering. He didn't just kind of like wander up there. He ran to that spot, stood there, looked directly at me with an expression of like, well, here I am, take the damn shot. And so I got 2 frames of this dog and he took off just as fast as he came. If you were to look at my timestamp, I took a couple of pictures and, 10 seconds, 15 seconds go by, then the dog, a second goes by, another dog, and then he's gone. And that really rattled me. I mean, in a good way. But I stood there with goosebumps for, 2 minutes going, what the hell just happened? That was rather intense. But that sort of, in a nutshell, in one photograph, encapsulated my experience in India. It was just intense, spiritual, and a lot of it mysterious and inexplicable. Thanks.
Great place to end of yours.
Very good. Thank you, Craig. That was really amazing from both you guys.
Thanks.
I just have, there may be some other questions, Andre. I don't know if you were able to see them while I was,
yes,
being the slide master, but, it'd be nice to hear from both Rob and Craig about your experiences of leading trips in these places and maybe what you do when you're with people and guiding them around, because I'm hoping there's some people on here that might be, potentially wanting to go on a trip with you guys. And maybe each of you could talk a little bit about what's your style of taking people on these trips, if you could both speak about that for a quick second.
Roro, go ahead. You're much more used to that.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously we don't lead photographic tours. We lead motorcycle tours, and for anyone, like Craig mentioned, it's in India. Just when you step out of the airport is an assault on the senses. If you're sitting in a taxi, some of the things you see just boggle the mind because you never see something you expect to see. So for us, it's all about gradually easing people in to the chaos. And obviously, once you're sitting on a motorcycle riding in that chaos, everything's amplified 100 times. So we just focus on making sure that everybody's safe. For people that fly into Delhi or anywhere to do our tours, the first day we put them on a bicycle. We take them on a bicycle tour around the city to get to know it, but also just to get used to the chaos. And that's always worked well for us. People like that experience. And within a couple of days of building up the courage to ride the bikes through the thick of Delhi rush hour traffic.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's crazy. A different experience for me. I've been there, I believe, 3 times, and 2 times were just simply on my own. So I was not leading a group. The third time I was leading a group that was sponsored by Leica and Momenta workshops. And we had, about 10 or 12 people. And we stayed at very, very nice hotels, and we had, very nice accommodations and transportation. And we actually flew to a few different cities as well. And basically it's the way we worked it was be out shooting. I'd be with everybody, sort of intermingling with them as they're out shooting. And then later in the day, I would have private time with them and go over the work that they had done. Yeah, I have limited experience leading the workshop. It was produced, like I said, by, I shouldn't say limited experience leading the workshop, just organizing the workshop and doing one there. It was really produced through Leica and Momentum.
Craig, I think you should ride with us sometime, man.
I would love to, man. I really would love to. It looks so great. The photos on the website of you guys on those motorcycles, man, that just seems like a great idea.
Yeah. I think it's a slam dunk tour right there. Everybody gets a print when they get back from us.
Well, it's funny because I've had people suggest maybe you should arrange tours around specific themes like yoga, whatever else. But maybe one that's organized around a theme of photography would be a good idea.
And Rob, you said you stop like every hour, right?
Yeah. It's all about during those stops we stop for tea, for masala chai, and it's about taking a break from the bikes, getting the people in the group a chance to interact and kind of build a group dynamic, but also it really gives us a chance to connect with the people. When you're riding a motorcycle in India, people in India ride motorcycles. So when you get on a bike, people will approach you and connect with you. So every single time we stop, those are usually the highlights of the entire tour, connecting with people, taking photographs, making friends.
You know, I just want to do a shameless plug for the guys from Digital Silver Imaging. These pictures all ended up in a a number of exhibitions, and they did this. They worked their magic with the the silver gelatin prints of these black and white images, and they looked spectacular. I could not have been happier, and everybody that saw them was drooling. So they did a great job. So thank you guys. Black and white.
Hey, I've got a question that's come up from some participants. A couple of people asked, and I wonder if both of you guys could address this, about what do you do in post-production for your images? What do you use?
Well, for me, to transfer all these, to black and white, it was Silver Effects Pro is what I would use, which is it's an app that you get, and you just it's very simple to use, but I try not to do much to these things. I kind of maybe darken a little bit light. I really don't do much that you can't do in a dark room, but that's how I would transfer it. Even if you keep the image exactly the same and you don't futz with it, just the idea of transferring it through digital, the Silver Effects Pro enhances it in some way. Just the processing of it through that app by itself without doing anything makes it look better, makes it look more like a genuine black and white film photograph. That's what I use.
Rob?
Well, I use an app called Luminar. I mean, I have to admit, Zach, you know me for years. I actually worked as a photo finisher. That was the closest I ever came to being a professional photographer, and used to print Semetko prints in a lab, probably the top photo finishing lab in Boston. And so I use this app called Luminar. It's kind of like Photoshop. It's pretty straightforward. I don't go super deep. I'm just more about using this stuff to kind of promote my company.
Yeah, Luminar is actually a really nice piece of software.
Yeah, I like it.
I guess I made an assumption. Maybe I should just say I'm using Lightroom to deal with this all to begin with, and the Silver Effects Pro is a plug-in to Lightroom.
Yeah. Yep. And Nick Software is the company name. They used to be distributed by Google, and now it's directly from Nick themselves. So yeah, if people are curious.
They got acquired. No, wait a minute. Nick got acquired by somebody else, Andrea.
Did they?
Yeah, another plug-in company. DxO. So, yeah, thank you.
DxO. Thank you, Davey and Rick and Nick.
Yeah. Does anybody else have any questions for our esteemed panelists before we let people go? We've
cutting into my happy hour here, mate.
Well, we noticed you've already enjoyed it. You've already imbibed, Rob, and
And a red stripe. Of all things to drink in
stripe.
London, I'm making
fine
sure.
idea.
Oh, red stripe.
Yeah.
Great.
Well, we have recorded this this video. Let's see. Someone asked if we do post. Yes, we do. Somebody asked if we will do post production, and we will absolutely work that with you. If you want to send us a color file, we would work on it. Send you a JPEG in black and white. And, you know, we charge $25 for that conversion. So it's you know, we'll work our magic on it. Some of it is done in Silver FX Pro. Some of it is done in Photoshop. So, but really want to thank Craig and Roro for taking the time out and sharing your great travel stories with us. Inspiring. It's, you know, one of my first photo books was Cartier-Bresson's book on India, and loved that book. So it was really nice to vicariously go on a trip with the two of you today and participate in your travels. Really, really wonderful. So
Yeah. And somebody, I've seen a couple of posts in the chat when I've posted both websites in the chat, but so if you scroll back through the chat, you'll see both Craig's and Rob's websites, two for Rob and one for Craig. And I urge you to go there and look at it. Somebody asked Rob, when you had your images up, where they could buy a print, and I told them to go to your website, and you have contact information there. So, and I'm sure the same holds true for Craig.
Yeah, contact me through the website, which is just semetko.com. And also Instagram is at Semetko.
that's
If you
great.
want to follow.
Yep. So,
And are you both, are your, just on your book, Rob and Craig, I know your book is available. Rob, is your book still available for purchase?
Yeah, it's on Apple iBooks.
Oh, great. Excellent.
Yeah. Mine's available through Amazon and me directly. If you get a hold of me directly, hopefully I have some here and I'll be able to sign it for you if you'd like. Yeah.
All right. Well, what a wonderful way to end. We really appreciate you guys spending the day with us. Sorry to all the people who are left for some of our technical issues there, as we are out of the gate here learning webinar technology with Zoom, but hopefully everybody got to enjoy all the images from Craig and Roro. So thank you for joining us today. Hope you all are staying safe and well. Maybe you're making pictures out your window like Craig, or sneaking outside with a mask and making some photos, but really hope everybody's doing safe and well. And we appreciate your time, and we'll all be in touch and hopefully seeing each other face to face soon. So thank you.
yeah, thanks.
Thanks
Thanks, guys.
everybody.
Take care, everybody, and thank you.